Okay, so today we are going to be replacing the main PCB in this Ultranova. And to start with this repair, what we're going to do is we're going to take our drill and we are going to remove these screws right here. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These two back here in the corner are a little hidden, so just be mindful of that. After we get these screws out, there will be little tabs that we have to pry to pull the upper and lower housing apart to get to the main PCB. Okay, now that we got those screws out, if you have a pry tool like this, plastic preferably so you don't scratch the unit, you're going to take it and stick it in these little tabs right here. There's a couple of them along the edge. It does take a bit of force, but it will come out once you get it. If it doesn't work from the back, sometimes going to the front can help loosen it up more, and then going to the back from the front. Okay, so getting the front there. And you can kind of just take your pry tool and run it along the edge. And we're at the side by the power cord. These do take a decent amount of force to get out. Okay, so now that I got everything along the front part of the seat, these back two will just come right out with just a little bit of force. Okay, so now our lower housing is completely disconnected from the upper housing. So here is our main PCB. You can see all the wires from this unit. They run along underneath some of the other components in here, but they all go into the top of this PCB here. So this is a relatively easy replacement, and everything's nice and color coded, so there really isn't too much to worry about. So to remove this, we're gonna look at these 4 screws right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. But before we take those out, we're gonna go and unplug everything. So yeah, we'll just take everything off here. And this is a pretty easy process because most of these have little tabs, so shouldn't need to pull very hard to take these out. So these 3 right here are for power. And if you struggle to get these out, sometimes the needle nose pliers will also do the job. Just be careful not to squeeze them too hard because these plastic connectors might break if you use too much on them. So that bundle of wires and connectors, this is for the upper housing if you ever needed to take that off. Okay, so now all of the wires are disconnected from the main PCB. So now what we're going to do is go back to those 4 screws I pointed out earlier. We're going to take those off. Okay, so now the main PCB is free from the lower housing. You might have to take these out of the little clip here on the side, but that doesn't take more than a second. But yeah, there's your part that you're trying to remove. Okay, so now that we have our new part here, we are going to install this new PCB. So to start with this, we're going to take these wires, which are all bundled together, and there's this little clip on the front of the PCB, and we're just gonna slide those in there, and this just kind of keeps things neat when you put it back together. And Also, there's another one on the back too, if you can get some of those wires in there. And it just keeps things out of the way and makes sure that it doesn't get all bunched up on you. Okay, so now that we got that back in place, what we're going to do is we're going to take these 4 screws that go in the corners of the part, and we're going to gently screw those back in. A hand screwdriver or a very light power drill work fine. Just don't go too hard with it, or otherwise you risk breaking the plastic because you are screwing metal screws into a plastic part. Just a little bit, hold that in place. Last screw here. Okay, now that we have those screws in, we're going to plug everything back in. So we got this red connector, it's going to go here. Everything should just kind of click back in place. We got this black one. This one's going to go right here. Plug these connectors in now, and everything has its own number of pins and is color coded. So even if you didn't take a picture of it before taking it apart, there's really only one way it can go back together, which is really nice if you are not tech savvy by any means. Only a couple more to go. I would recommend making sure that you push straight down on the connectors. You don't want to press them in at an angle, otherwise you risk possibly bending the little pins that are inside the ports on the PCB. You don't want to bend those because then you would need another part to fix that most likely. Okay, we're coming up on the last few ones here. This yellow tiny one, and then this white one. So if you had an auto flush model, those would plug into one of these 2 plugs right here. But since this is not an auto flush, those are not in this video. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to reassemble everything with the lower housing and the upper housing to put it all back together. So with the upper housing laying upside down, we're going to take the lower housing and just kind of slowly drop it onto the top of this, and just use your hand or palms around the edge and just kind of press down, and everything will snap into place. You should hear a little click as you get it. There's little tabs around the outside here, and those will lock down when you have it. And then the front, just check the edges to make sure that everything is seated properly. If there's no pinched wires in there by some chance or whatever, you don't want that to happen. So just check all the edges to make sure that they're flush. Now we're going to go back and put these 7 screws back into place. So we'll start with this one up here. Don't want to use too much torque, just enough to make sure that they're snug. Because this is a metal screw into plastic, and metal will win every time. Okay, with all those screws back in place, that will conclude this PCB replacement of the Ultra Nova.